For more on that current situation, we're joined now by Dr. Tanya Hassan. She's a pediatric intensive care doctor with MSF who has just returned from working in Jordan. She is also the co-founder of the Gaza Medic Voices. We reached her tonight in Toronto. Tanya, Dr. Hassan, thank you so much for your time here. I think it's fortuitous that we had already booked you as a guest, and now we have you hopefully to offer some kind of reaction to what we understand is now happening at Al-Shifa hospital, the fact that the Israeli forces have moved into a specified area. I'm very interested in your reaction to that.
I mean, shock and speechlessness. It's the same reaction I've had every day. It's just every day we reach a new low, a very dark era for humanity, and we think it can't get worse. And then, in the words of one of my a female surgeon in Gaza, she said, "We always think we have reached the worst, and it can't get worse, and the world will not stay silent to it." And then the next day comes and it proves that there's something even worse. And I think that's exactly where we are. I'll paint a picture for you of what Al-Shifa was like before this most recent breaking news that it's being raided internally. Over the last 3 or so days, Al-Shifa hospital, the largest hospital in Gaza, has been under complete siege, completely surrounded by Israeli tanks. Medical staff inside said anyone who moves passing the windows, they were being directly targeted by snipers from the outside. They had at least 2 nurses killed. These are reports from doctors, not necessarily doctors with MSF, but colleagues that we know internally, as well as MSF staff. We know that there are hundreds of patients, over 600 patients is what we are told. You mentioned the 36 or so newborn babies, at least 3 of them had been 39. 3 of them have passed away. There are multiple patients in the intensive care unit. At least 2 of those have died. There is no, the oxygen supply was hit. There are multiple medical providers, over 100 medical providers there. There are also or thousands of internally displaced people sheltering in and around that complex. And there are over 100 dead bodies decomposing and unable to be buried, unable to be preserved because the morgues don't have electricity to keep them cool. They dug a mass grave, I was informed today, and buried 82 of those dead bodies. They are unable to reach the other bodies or bury them because when they try and reach them in the compound, they are directly targeted and shot out. There is no food, there is no water inside the hospital. They are living on the last remaining dates and biscuits that they have. This is, like I said, over 600 patients, over 100 staff members, as well as all the internally displaced people in the complex.
Doctor.
Now, in the last couple of hours, as you said, we've heard reports that they have entered the hospital and are carrying out these operations. I think any suggestion that civilian lives are being protected is immediately refuted by the mere evidence that we have observed over the last 30 days. I mean, over 11,000 people have been killed, and that statistic is outdated by 3 days because we are not able to get any data since then, as methods of communication have been completely destroyed and these atrocities are happening in the dark. Almost 5,000 of those are children. Healthcare hospitals, we keep talking about Al-Shifa hospital as this place where battles are taking place, when I'm telling you that on the inside, it is functioning as a hospital with hundreds of patients and healthcare providers struggling. And this isn't an isolation. There are similar stories coming out of Rantisi Hospital, out of Al-Nasr Hospital, out of the only psychiatric hospital in Gaza, out of Al-Quds, out of Al-Aqsa, out of Al-Ahli. All the hospitals in Gaza have been targeted in one way or another.
Doctor, everything you're saying, I'm sort of on the edge of my seat listening, so I don't mean to interrupt, but I did want to ask, I know you have been in to Gaza, I believe you go in almost every year, or have for some time, been going into the hospitals in Gaza. Have you ever been inside Al-Shifa?
I have. I haven't been recently because I was meant to be going to Gaza on November 4th. to teach on its annual teaching trip, but obviously it was canceled in the setting of recent events and the closing of the borders. Yes, I have been inside Al-Shifa. It is an extremely busy hospital, particularly the ER, the intensive care units, the operating rooms. It is the largest trauma hospital in Gaza, and it functions like any very busy hospital, like my hospital here in Canada. And it's just a very, very busy tertiary hospital where it's just full of patients and medical providers and the kind of chaos you expect in that kind of setting.
I heard an earlier interview you had given. We were asked about the possibility that these accusations made by Israel, and now we've also heard, I should say, from the White House as well, saying that they have specific intelligence saying that Hamas has used this particular hospital, at least recently, to support military operations and to hold hostages. And a previous interview that you gave, I heard you say that you did not believe that that was the case, at least not to your knowledge. What do you make of the fact that today the White House has said that it also has this intelligence to suggest that Hamas has been operating inside that hospital?
Look, I work for Doctors Without Borders. One of the principles of the founding of our organization was bearing witness, témoignage, and it's exactly for this kind of purpose. It's to bear witness on these atrocities and to relieve the suffering of the people that experience them. What we're experiencing in the last month is a situation where we cannot bear witness. There is no independent international organization that can go in there, despite repeated calls from doctors in these hospitals to say, please bring in independent bodies. Please come, look. I can't tell you, I'm not an investigator, I'm not a politician. What I can tell you is what I observe on the ground. What I can tell you with certainty is that these hospitals are caring for patients and have healthcare providers in them. And I have never personally seen any military activity in or around the hospitals. I can also tell you for certainty that today, based on MSF staff that are present there, based on colleagues that I know there as well outside of MSF, that they are desperate, that these are healthcare providers like myself who've been sending out SOS messages for a month now, begging for international protection, begging for international help, and have been denied it and have been met with the deafening silence of the international powers that be. So I can tell you that for certain. And what I also can tell you is that if this accusation is being made about Al-Shifa, what is the accusation for all the other hospitals in the Gaza Strip? This is not a unique attack on this one particular hospital, even though it is the tangent that these narratives are taking us on. All the hospitals are being targeted. The clinics have been targeted, the refugee camps, the schools, the bakeries, the water supply, the solar energy supply, the oxygen tanks. Oxygen is not being used for military purposes. Oxygen is being used to protect civilian life, to protect the life of patients in these hospitals. So, you know, the news just keeps circling over and over these accusations. What about all the other things that are being committed, the other violations of international humanitarian law, the other systematic elimination of an entire civilian population, at least 50% of whom are children? If you hear frustration and desperation in my voice, it's because I'm shocked that we are living in an era of humanity when we are allowing this to happen, and when every humanitarian organization is out there, including humanitarian organizations, international ones, humanitarian organizations, even within Israel, like Beit Salem, Israeli Physicians for Human Rights, are screaming that this has to stop. We know better. We know better as a human race. We know better. We've learned better from the mistakes of the past.
Doctor, we can definitely hear the frustration in your voice. There is no mistaking it. Before I let you go, I want to ask your medical opinion on something here. And I've been struck by the images of the babies, the 36 in intensive care that are there, and the idea that somehow portable incubators could be brought into the hospital and that they might somehow be evacuated safely using these incubators. How, in your medical opinion, how safe would that be? Is that something that actually might be possible in these circumstances?
So first of all, they're not in intensive care. They were taken out of the intensive care. They're all huddled on little beds, wrapped and bundled to keep warm to whatever capacity, and obviously deprived at this point of oxygen if they needed it. And like I said, several of them have died. Is it possible to bring in portable incubators? I mean, Al-Shifa Hospital had incubators that were being used to keep these patients alive, and that those abilities were destroyed. So could they bring in portable incubators and transport them out? In theory, yes. However, what I'm told is all the ambulances are being struck that are trying to approach Al-Shifa Hospital. Even individuals who were shot in the compound, in and around the compound of Al-Shifa, cannot be brought into the hospital because medical providers who've tried to reach them have been shot at. One of the MSF staff described being housed or being in the area around Al-Shifa Hospital and said the same thing. We cannot leave, we're being targeted. Today we received news that bullets are being fired into one of 3 MSF premises located near Al-Shifa Hospital and sheltering MSF staff and their families, over 100 people, including 65 children, who all ran out of food last night. So yes, in theory, if the Israeli forces decided that they wanted to evacuate those babies, decided that they were going to do it safely using incubators that they bring in, decided that they weren't going to harm any of the staff who are going to transfer these babies to those incubators, and transported them safely thereafter without targeting any of the ambulances, all of things which have not been the case so far, then yes, in theory, medically, you can transport those babies out, absolutely. And I want to emphasize that Doctors Without Borders, other international organizations, humanitarian organizations, and the healthcare practitioners of these hospitals from Gaza have been begging for the safety of their patients, be it in the hospital itself or the safe evacuation of them to somewhere else where they can receive care.
Right. Dr. Tanya Hassan, a pediatric intensive care doctor with MSF and the co-founder of Gaza Medic Voices, an important voice for us tonight. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me.